own religion. Where his past was undistinguished, Hubbard invented a more impressive life story, making himself a nuclear physicist and decorated war hero. As Dianetics is supposed to make one healthy, he concealed his many illnesses. In the late 60s, Hubbard took to the high seas in an old Channel ferry called the Apollo.
I don't think you could make anything out of that, like Hubbard killed people in that.
Scientology was becoming increasingly unpopular with several governments. On the Apollo, Hubbard created Scientology's elite, the Sea Organization, or Org, complete with naval ranks and uniforms. Its members signed contracts lasting 1 billion years, and military discipline prevailed, with harsh punishments for those who offended against the founders' rules or ethics. Hubbard called himself the Commodore, and was waited upon by a hand-picked team of teenage girls known as the Commodore's Messengers. Dee Dee Reisdorf became their commanding officer.
I was actually born into Scientology. When I was 13, we joined the Sea Org. The whole idea of being in the Sea Org is that you were the ones who were here to make the world a safe place. The Sea Org was special. There was what we called the WOG world.
The what?
The WOG world.
What did that mean?
Anything and anybody who wasn't involved with Scientology was the WOG world. What now I like to call the real world. But at that point, that was what, we considered people out there as the WOG world.
Another girl sailor was Hannah Whitfield. She was able to observe Hubbard's character in close detail.
There were two distinct sides to him. One was an incredibly compassionate side. He was a very understanding, rather humanitarian man at times. The other side was what I would call bordering on, it's not a popular word, but bordering on insane or psychotic. He would go into mad, screaming rages where he would be bellowing at the top of his lungs, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours on and off. I've actually seen that.
Do you ever think that you might be quite mad?
Oh, yes. The one man in the world who never believes he's mad is a madman.
Hubbard spent most of the last 10 years in hiding in America. Only a few close aides knew where he was.
At 2000 hours, Friday, the 24th of January, 1986, L. Ron Hubbard discarded the body he had used in this lifetime for 74 years, 10 months, and 11 days. The body he had used to facilitate his existence in this universe had ceased to be useful, and in fact had become an impediment to the work he now must do outside its confines. The being we knew as L. Ron Hubbard still exists. Although you may feel grief, understand that he did not and does not now. He has simply moved on to his next step. LRH, in fact, used this lifetime in the body we knew to accomplish what no man has ever accomplished. He unlocked the mysteries of life and gave us the tools so that we could free ourselves and our fellow man.
Those were the words of the Church's official announcement of Hubbard's death last year. When alive, Hubbard claimed he had visited heaven twice, and the second time found it shabby. His Scientology funeral service was one he had written.
And now here, lift up your eyes and say to him, goodbye. 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 Our dear Ron, goodbye. We'll miss you, you know.
Hubbard had signed a new will the day before he died, insisting that he be cremated at once and the ashes scattered at sea. The fate of his vast but secret fortune was also murky, but power had passed to the young followers who were with him at the end.
I'd like all of you now to join us in singing Happy Birthday to Ron.
One of those heirs is the Master of Ceremonies here, David Miscavige.
By Mr. John Travolta.
Although Hubbard is dead, this was his memorial birthday celebration last month, an opportunity for the Church to parade its star members and salute the late founder. Scientology presents a confident image as it marches forward to clear the planet, as it says, and offer the only road to total freedom. But the church can also be secretive and defensive. You are yourself photographed if you photograph its buildings. Investigations by various government agencies have over the years created something of a siege mentality. In the late 70s, 11 top Scientologists were imprisoned for burglary, robbing American government offices of files. In one of his bulletins, Hubbard instructed church members, don't ever defend, always attack. Since Scientologists consider themselves the exclusive possessors of the secrets of the universe, anyone outside the church tends to be deemed hostile, or, as they say, suppressive. And we were no exception.
Why do you think this guy's taking our picture?
Oh, because they're going to use it against us later on, supposedly.
Why is he taking photographs of us? They should take another picture.
Ron Hubbard says if you take their picture or something, you can use it against them, or maybe people are intimidated by the picture taking, you know? They were taking my pictures all the time.
Scientology reserves a special distrust for the media. Members may not give interviews without the church's permission. Despite a long-standing invitation, our interview with the church's chosen spokesman was granted only when they were convinced that this program would be broadcast without their participation. When we taped that interview, the church had its own cameras rigged to video us.
More fundamentally,
Scientologists dressed in the style of Christian ministers witnessed the proceedings. American Judge Paul Breckenridge said in a recent judgment, the organization clearly is schizophrenic and paranoid, and this bizarre combination seems to be a reflection of its founder, LRH.
Mr. Breckenridge is not the first one to say that. A man by the name of Paul Dickhoff disseminated it first, SS number 337259, an SS officer in the Nazi intelligence systems who was the head of the Bundeskriminalamt, the German federal police, in 1970. They're the head of Interpol, as a matter of fact. I do not support a Nazi's supposed right to disseminate that kind of thing.
But, Mr. Judge, you regard your enemies as the CIA, the IRS, the FBI, MI6, MI5, just about every government.
No, I'm on the
paranoia
IRS
is a
enemies
mild
list.
expression for the church's attitude to its supposed enemies.
You know, our enemies are ignorance, drugs, corruption, criminality, and insanity.
But those the church seems to regard as its worst enemies are its most recent defectors, especially those with damaging stories to tell. Near the Canadian border lives Don Larson, who ran the church's so-called finance police.
I was a hatchet man for this financial dictator. If you could force someone to be scared enough in the church, they would cough up the money that you wanted. And it was my job to scare people.
What methods do you use?
Extortion, force, threats, duress.
Larson was there when David Miscavige and the new regime took over.
The old management was just chopped, and new management was put in its place. And its motto was, we make no deals with anybody. We're tough, we're ruthless, no deals. There was about 15 of us. We went out and rented 3 limos, drove up to an organization in San Francisco, and did a practice beat-em-up kind of meeting, you know. Took the CDO, the commanding officer of that organization. He got thrown into the filing cabinets. He was sec-checked on a meter, and people. Well, that's where you have to tell the truth. And there's a whole row of people around the guy, right? And he's sitting there hanging on to the cans, and this has nothing to do with religion anymore, right? This is, where's the money, Jack? I want the money. Where did you put the money? And he said, I don't know. I don't have the money. So David Miscavige comes up, grabs him by the tie, and starts bashing him into the filing cabinets. Then he's thrown out in the street. His tie's ripped off. This is just a warm-up kind of bash.
Some of those who left the church sued for restitution of the fees they had paid. Whenever there were court hearings, the church mounted spectacular protest demonstrations. This one was in Sacramento. Scientology maintains that an ex-member suing the church for fraud is an attack on religious freedom, and even some Christian churches spoke out in its support. The big names were there too.
It's worked for me for 10 years, and it's worked for thousands, millions of people, and I just feel that nothing can and should threaten that.
But courts found against the church. Last year, one ex-Scientologist was awarded $30 million damages. The church is appealing. This party in Los Angeles is to launch a $1 billion class action, that is, a collective lawsuit, against the Church of Scientology. The plaintiff's attorney is Lawrence Levy.
Levels before we found out what any other religion was.
Over 400 ex-Scientologists, some living in Britain, have combined to sue the church for restitution of their fees and to stop what they allege is church harassment. The lawsuit has a long way to go through the courts and may indeed